Hey y'all, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the top 5 expenses that I'm now researching and making phone calls in advance of taking a deal to market. These 5 have been changing the game a little bit over the last couple years, so you're going to want to stick around to see which ones they are. Let's go! As a listing broker, when I'm looking and doing a BOV on an asset, I traditionally like to have at minimum a trailing 12 months of income and expenses to look at. And I like them month by month in order to see any kind of irregularities in any specific month so I can ask questions with the seller themselves. Of course, I do like to have 3 full years, but the trailing 12 months is the most important. And in the last couple of years, there have been 5 expenses that I'm now routinely doing some double checks on before I take this thing to market, because I know once I take it to market, if I haven't already done my homework, some things could pop up as surprises as the buyers are doing their due diligence. Okay, expense number 1, utilities. Yes, I'm looking at the trailing 12-month of utilities to see if there's any kind of weird months or big jumps or double months paid, just to make sure I don't double count in some of my pro forma work. But what I'm also doing now is calling the utility company directly and getting the trailing 12-month average of the historical averages they have. I want to know what the water and the sewer, the utilities, whether there's garbage on there, house meters, irrigation, whatever else that's being billed to that owner, I want to know what it is. The reason I'm calling the utility company directly and getting this information is I want to verify that what's on the P&L is correct. There have been several instances in my career where what was on the historical P&L was vastly less than the actual utilities that were being billed to the landlord. Now, in almost all those cases, it wasn't the landlord trying to be nefarious and withhold information. They were all just accounting errors, but that's something that could have been a surprise to the buyers had they done some research, which would then trip up the due diligence and possibly a retrade down the road. If the utility company numbers do differ vastly from what I have in the trailing financials, I'd like to ask the owner and the property manager what the differences are. We can go month by month if we'd like, but sometimes that will also unveil why that's occurring. Expense number 2, property taxes. I'm doing 2 things on property taxes. Number 1, I'm reaching out directly to the tax assessor themselves and having a discussion about the type of asset that I'm talking about. I don't give them the specific address of the asset. I just talk in generalities about the age, approximate location within the county, and what it may trade for in a range of prices. I then want to find out from them, since they use the income approach to recreate the value post-sale, what they're assuming in their income approach. What are they going to use for vacancies? Where do they get their rents from? What kind of expense ratios do they use? What cap rates are they using? I want to verify the millage rate and try to reproduce the income statement that they're going to do post-sale so that I can give buyers a little better idea what that might come out to. The number 2 thing I'm doing is I'm making sure my seller reaches out to a tax consultant who can consult on what the taxes may be post-sale by separating the taxable part of the real estate from the non-taxable part of the real estate. And I'm wanting to put the buyers who are looking at this asset in contact with that consultant so that they can feel better about what those taxes may look like in the year after the sale. The number 3 expense I'm looking at, property management. There are some assets I've looked at, not many, in which the management is charging all kinds of little small fees left and right that when you add it all up becomes a much higher percentage of the income than what is standard for the market. If I believe that management fee is well above market, then I'm going to talk to several property management companies in the market that I like and respect and that have a good reputation information in the marketplace and talk to them about what they would be charging on this particular asset. Assuming I get good responses on what the more normal management fees would look like, I'm going to hold on to that information in order to be able to provide that for buyers so that when they're underwriting it, they have those lower numbers in there, which is more normal. The number 4 expense I'm diving deep into is the repairs and maintenance category in order to pull out true capital expenditures that have been done. I'm finding many owners and their management companies, particularly for smaller assets under 50 units is generally where I find it, where they wrap in all of the major capital expenditures into the repairs and maintenance category instead of creating a separate line item called CapEx or one-time expenses in order to track those kinds of expenses. Obviously, as a broker trying to maximize value for my seller, I don't want to double count the capital expenditures that are embedded in the repairs and maintenance category and adding a reserve line. So I generally like to ask for a general ledger of the repairs and maintenance category so I can see each and individual repair, maintenance, and supplies that have been ordered in order to pull out some of those one-time expenses. One last thing I do when I'm working with sellers is I like to ask the seller themselves, are there any expenses that they pay directly that would not show up on the property manager's P&L that I've received? There have been several instances in the past in which I have a nice, beautiful P&L. I've run all my numbers from it. I've come up with the value, and then I find out too late that there were a couple of major expenses that get billed or sent directly to the seller, and the seller pays them directly, so those numbers never show up in the P&L from the property manager. And the 5th and final expense that I'm doing a lot more due diligence on, insurance is crazy. Unless the existing insurance expenses on the P&L was just quoted 2 hours ago, I'm not using that expense today. I will also reach out to the existing insurer to ask them what the new cost will be for a new owner coming in. I also want to go ahead and pull 5-year loss runs in order to be able to get this quote from a new insurer, and I want to see what the coverage amounts are. A lot of the times I'm seeing on these insurance policies, the buildings are being covered for way less than replacement cost, which is about to go out the window from now on. Insurance companies are making certain that the replacement cost you have in these policies is an actual replacement cost in the event of a loss. I have a couple of recent insurance videos on my YouTube channel that you might want to watch, but insurance is changing rapidly right now in late 2022, and Hurricane Ian did not do us any favors. So those are the 5 expenses. My whole goal is I want to underwrite this asset as much as I can like I'm buying it myself. I want to be able to defend the assumptions I have in there. My reputation is also on the line. If I have clown expenses on there, I'm gonna look like a clown. As a multifamily broker bringing a new listing to market, I like to work hard on the front end to get as much of that due diligence done for buyers as I can. Being prepared on the front end does 2 things. Number 1, it allows the buyer to have a little more comfort in the numbers and being a little more aggressive on the due diligence times if I've already done some of this research up front. And number 2, it greatly reduces the chances of any buyer thinking about doing a retrade during the deal. Now, this is multifamily and surprises still happen from time to time because as brokers, we don't have the opportunity to have operated the property for several years. We don't know the ins and outs like the owners and the property managers do. But I try to do a good job on the front end of really figuring out the questions that each buyer will have as they're analyzing it over the next 2 or 3 weeks when it comes to market. I hope this video was of some value. If it was, please give me a like and a subscribe down below. Make sure you hit that little notification bell next to it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.